I returned after the long rains, when the ground had drunk deep, and the mango leaves shone like polished hands. The air smelled of wet earth and charcoal and hibiscus. The lane to our yard wore a thin shawl of red dust, and each step stirred a quiet memory. I carried a bag with my clothes, and a small tin where I kept my sea wages folded tight, and a song in my throat I had planned to sing to the house when I touched its wall. The gate met me the way old things do. It groaned, a little polite, a little tired. My palm rested on its familiar cool. I looked up. The mango tree's low branch curved toward the ground as if it knew more than it could say. A line where our mother once dried clothes lay across the yard, faint but faithful. The bench near the kitchen wall waited. The bench's top was rubbed smooth by years of elbows, and in the grain you could see the days. I stepped in. The yard smelled like rain learning to be memory. Then I saw what did not belong. A new clay pot painted with little red flowers. A small pair of sandals, bright blue. 2 woven chairs I had never seen. I thought perhaps a cousin had visited, or a neighbor had set things there while sweeping. I called into the front room, my voice warm because the house still held me. "Kofi, are you here?" The door opened. A woman I did not know stood in the doorway, a baby on her hip. The child's hair curled tight, small coils like springs of laughter. The woman's eyes went wider when she saw me. She held herself with care, as people do when a stranger enters a room where they sleep. "Good afternoon," she said softly. "Can I help you?" My name felt both heavy and light in my mouth. "I am Io," I said. "This is my house. My mother's house. Our house." I smiled a little to soften the words, for I did not want to make her afraid. "I have been away at the coast." She shifted the baby and looked back over her shoulder. A man stepped from the shadow behind her. He was not large, but he carried himself like a person who knows the weight of sacks and does not complain about them. His face was open, and his hands were clean in a way that comes from washing after work. He took in the yard and the mango and the bench, and then he met my eyes. "I am Bello," he said. "This is my wife Mara. We are living here now." He paused, the way a person pauses before crossing a stream to choose the stones. "We bought this house from Kofi." The baby drew a line of drool on Mara's shoulder, and she wiped it with the edge of her scarf. The scarf was green, and the green seemed to carry a piece of early morning. My heart misstepped. I stood still so it could find its rhythm again. "From my brother?" I asked, though I had heard him clearly. "Yes," Bello said. He did not look away. "We paid him. We have the paper." He reached into a bag and unfolded a document with careful fingers. There was a stamp, purple and slightly faded like an old bruise. A thumbprint sat on the bottom, brown and blunt. He held it so I could see. I read. The words were official. They rose and fell like someone trying to tell a story without knowing the ending. The name was Kofi, my brother. The sum was there. The date was there. A mark where the witness should have signed was smeared, as though a fly had walked across the ink. I felt the weight of my sea tin in my bag as if it could anchor me. I breathed. The smell of cooked okra came from the kitchen. A kettle sang a thin song. I put the paper down on my palm and looked at the mango leaves. They did not move. I looked at my feet. Dust had settled on my shoes in the shape of the path I had taken. It seemed to say, "This is where you have walked, not where you will stand." "Bello," I said. "Mara, I do not want to bring trouble into your meal. But I am surprised and I am hurt. I would like to speak to my brother. Will you allow me to leave my bag here and return after I find him? I promise I will not bring shouting to your door." Mara glanced at Bello, then at me. The baby watched a fly with deep interest. Bello nodded. "Go," he said. "Find him. We will wait for the council to guide us. We are not your enemies. Thank you," I said. The words felt right. "I will be back before the sun sleeps." I put my bag on the bench. My fingers found the little notch in the wood where my father once measured my height with a nail. He had tapped it in to mark 12 years, and on my 13th birthday he had laughed and said, "Now we will measure you by your shoulders and by your kindness, not just by inches." My palm warmed the old mark. Then I stepped back into the lane. The afternoon sat like a cat in the sun, content and watchful. The market's edge was bright. Smoke from roasted plantains curled like thin questions. A woman slapped wet laundry against a plank and sang between blows, her voice threading through the steam and soap. Children chased a hoop made of wire. The hoop hummed as it ran. A cart passed, its left wheel complaining, the sound like a goat who had a story to tell but no words. "Ayo!" The miller lifted his hand. He was an old man with a back like a bow and eyes as sharp as new rice. "The coast did not keep you," he said, smiling. "No," I said. "Not forever." I moved closer. "Have you seen Kofi today?" He nodded toward the path that fell away to the river. "He went with his stones," he said, which was his way of saying Kofi was thinking and needed moving water. "Tell him the mill still sings, and tell him not to cross the river with dry feet." "It is not polite." I thanked him and walked down the path. The light softened under the trees. Leaves rubbed against each other, a soft applause. Cicadas tuned their instruments. The river opened slowly between reeds and sand like a secret revealed by a friend. Kofi stood on the bank. He had that shape to him I remembered from boyhood when he thought about a hard thing. Head a little down, shoulders lifted as if against rain, hands busy with something small. Now the small thing was stones. He threw them one by one, each making a circle, each circle swallowed by the current. His shirt clung to his back in a map of sweat. He did not turn when I reached him. He knew the sound of my steps. We were born from the same roof. Our ears had learned each other the way roots learn water. "Kofi," I said. He bent and picked another stone. He turned it in his palm. "Ayo," he answered. He said my name without surprise, but not without feeling. I stood beside him. The river wore the sky like a new shirt. A bird skimmed low and made two split paths behind it. The bank smelled of wet mud and the sharp green of reeds. Far off, someone laughed, a boy maybe, with nothing heavy on his shoulders. I waited. Waiting is a kindness. I learned it from our mother who would stir a pot and let it rest before she tasted, to give the flavors courage to speak. Kofi tossed the stone. It skipped once, then sank. He exhaled. "You are back," he said. "I am back." I did not say, "I am home." I did not know yet what that word would do in my mouth. He rubbed his face with both hands and spoke into them. "I meant to fetch you from the station when I heard your letter had reached," he said. I walked halfway, then turned. I could not decide which road my feet should use. You know how my feet can be. "You have always walked straight when you needed to," I said. It was true, but I said it gently. He nodded, not agreeing, not refusing. "You have been to the house," he said, and it was not a question. I have. I felt the river air rest on my forearms. A dragonfly hovered, a green blade with wings. "Bello and Mara are there." "I sold it," he said, and the words were stones too, dropped into a quiet place. "I sold our mother's house. Why?" My voice did not break. I do not know how it stayed calm. Perhaps it stood on the same rope that had learned my balance at the sea. He did not speak at first. He crouched and drew lines in the wet sand with a stick. Water came and smoothed them away as water does. He watched it cancel his effort, and then he spoke, as if the water had given him permission to begin again. "After Mother," he said. He did not finish that sentence. The air finished it. We both watched the water a moment. "After she left," he began again, "the house felt like a shirt too large for me. It held all our rooms and all our echoes. When the rains came last year, the roof we patched with tin and prayers bent again. I woke 3 nights in a row to catch drips in bowls. The bowls filled. The floor felt cold like a quiet ending." He lifted his eyes toward the bend where the river slows. "I took a small loan to sell palm oil to the next town. The truck's axle snapped. The owner wanted his money at the end of the week. I counted all my coins twice and came up short both times. I met a man at the mill who said he knew a buyer. A good man, he said, with a wife and a child. He said the price would set me right. He said I could buy a smaller place and repair that too. He talked fast. My shame talked faster. I did not write to you because the shame told me you would say no. Shame does that, you know. It borrows your voice and makes it say what you would never say. He ran a flat palm over his hair. I signed. I did not think of the pot under the pillar, not until the night after. Then I remembered, and I felt as if the ground had moved under me while I slept. My throat went tight. The image rose in me as clearly as the smell of roasted plantain at the market, our parents taking a clay pot, a brass coin inside, a small palm leaf folded over it, the soft words our mother said. I saw my father's hands, scarred where the saw once kissed him. I saw the way the sun rested on the pillar that day, the day of building. Kofi, I said, we will not wrestle by the river like boys. We will go to the elders. The house will hear us and the ground will answer. We will let truth sit with us, not fear. He nodded. His eyes were red-rimmed, either from the river light or from what was inside him. We will go, he said. I am tired of being inside a room where my own breath is too loud. We climbed the path together. He did not touch my shoulder and I did not touch his. Sometimes you keep your hands to yourself while your heart finds where to rest. The council tree waits in the center of our town. It is not the biggest tree, but it has the oldest patience. Its bark is like a map of creeks, each line ending somewhere interesting. Beneath it, elders sit on low stools. They greet people with eyes first, then with words. Today, the talking drum leaned silent against a chair, the leather smooth and dark. Smoke from a small cooking fire made a ribbon that the wind unrolled and rolled again. Elder Mosey presided. He wore a cloth the color of late afternoon and early leaf. His hair grew white at the temples as if light had chosen to rest there. His face had room on it. That is the only way I know to say it. You looked at him and you felt your words would fit. He lifted his hand when he saw us. Ayo, he said, and his voice held my name as a safe bowl holds soup. Kofi. He nodded to both of us, no more weight to one than the other. He glanced past us and I turned. Bello and Mara were there, the baby in a sling at her mother's back, already drowsy. It moved me that they had come themselves and not sent only the paper. Let us sit, Elder Mosey said. We sat on mats woven with palm fronds. The ground was cool. The air held that afternoon heat that makes soft shadows beside feet. Speak, he invited, one at a time, with respect for ears. Bello began. He did not raise his voice. Elder, he said, my wife and I sought a house near the well and the school. Kofi told us he wished to sell. We saved. We paid him on a clear morning. We have a paper with a stamp. We brought our child. We began to sweep and patch. We did not know there was another who had rights here. He handed the paper to a young man who brought it to the elder's row. The ink looked tired in the sun. Kofi spoke next. He did not fold his arms and he did not hide his eyes. Elder, he said, I sold without my brother. I feared the roof would fall, and I feared debts, and I feared the size of my mistakes. Fear is a bad lamp. It lights only your feet and leaves your head dark. I was wrong. I did not call Ayo. I did not wait for counsel. I wanted to fix everything, but I used a hammer where I needed a needle. He swallowed. The sound was loud to me. Maybe because I love him. Elder Mosey nodded as though he had heard such things before and did not grow tired of hearing them. Ayo, he said. Your voice. I told the truth as simple as I could. I told of my work by the coast, the smell of salt that came home with me, the letters I wrote and the coins I sent when the days allowed. I told of our house, the way our father set the first peg with a string, the way our mother whispered a blessing at the base stone, the way we placed a brass coin inside a clay pot, folded in a palm leaf. We sealed the pot and buried it by the first pillar in the front room, I said. Our father said, a house should remember its root, and children should remember the words that made them. He wrote a note to place with the coin, so that the house would hold the record like a tree holds rings. He said no one could sell without the other. He said the house belongs to both sons, and that any big step must be taken together. I paused. The quiet was kind. The council listened with their whole faces. Even the talking drum seemed to be listening. Elder Mosey placed the paper on his knee. He looked at Bello. You bought in trust, he said. Trust is a small bridge that carries much weight. We must honor that. He looked at Kofi. You sold alone. The custom of our people holds the house to family lines, he said, gentle. It says that selling a house is like moving a riverbank. You must call the river by its right name, and both banks must agree. He let us sit with that. He looked at me, then down at the ground near my feet, then past me toward the line of the market. He took a breath that seemed to carry the whole day. Then he said, There is a proverb I learned when I was a boy. When the roots drink, the leaves are glad. He tapped his staff softly on the ground once. We must find the root here. He rose slowly and turned to face the half-circle of neighbors who had gathered. Some came because their curiosity is honest, some because they love an ending that mends. We will go to the house at sunrise, he announced. We will stand by the front pillar. If the clay pot lies where Io says, it will tell us the story the ground never forgets. If it is there, we will open it with care. Its note and coin will be our witness. If it is not there, we will listen again, with ears like cooking pots, wide and ready. He turned to Kofi. You sold. You will dig when the sun is kindest in the morning. You will take up the earth with a shovel and with your hands, a little at a time. You will not break the pot if it is there. We will watch, not to shame you, but so the truth can see all our faces at once. Kofi bowed his head. I will dig, he said. Bello, Elder Mosey continued, you and Mara will bring your paper and stand in the shade. Your child will be held by any hand that is free. The house is not a place for anger. It is a place where mothers set bowls and babies draw their toes against the air. We will be gentle, Bello nodded. Mara blinked, and I thought I saw her swallow a tear and smile at the same time. She shifted the baby on her back and whispered something I could not catch. The baby made a sound like a small bird. The crowd murmured, not loud, not harsh. A breeze moved through the tree, and a few leaves clapped as if agreeing. Elder Mosey lifted his hand again. Go, he said. Eat well. Sleep well. Words work better when people are fed. We will meet with the morning, we rose. Neighbors did not stretch for gossip. They offered help like water. Do you need a shovel? One asked. I will bring mine, I said, though I knew the town had 3 that everyone used when needed. Do you want a mat? Another asked. We have enough, I said, and in that moment, I felt the house already making space for mercy. How does a house do that? I do not know, but sometimes walls learn from the hearts that live inside them. Kofi and I walked back to the yard with our steps measured. The shadows lay longer, and the gold in the light had thickened, like soup that has cooked enough. A small bird pecked at the ground near the basil. The basil was new. Its scent made the air friendly. At the gate, Bello opened and stood aside. Come in, he said. Let us be neighbors tonight. We will share what we have. Inside, the front room had been swept. The shelf where our mother kept her plates had been dusted. The plates shone like moons. Mara set a bowl on the table and steam rose from it. The smell was pepper and fish and the sweet belly of yam. She spoke. We cooked more than we need, she said. Sometimes good comes from too much. We sat. There is a way to sit with people when trouble is in the room. You sit straight. You put your feet flat. You let your hands rest open. You choose words with half the speed you used in the market. You chew as if you might learn from the food. Bello spoke to Kofi. Tomorrow, he said. When you dig, I will hold the line straight so your trench does not wander. I know that is for foundations, not pots. He smiled a little. But my hands want to help. Kofi's eyes flickered with surprise, then settled. Thank you, he said. He did not say more. He took a small piece of fish and placed it beside Mara's spoon without speaking, a small courtesy learned from our mother's kitchen. After we ate, I stepped into the front room with my hands behind me. I stood by the pillar. The pillar was the same, but it seemed to stand taller because people were standing on their kindness and not on their anger. The floor near the pillar had a faint dip where our feet had always paused. I crouched and touched the packed earth. It felt cool. It felt like a sleeping animal, not a real animal, but the idea of something alive breathing in the soil. Do you remember? I asked Kofi and he came to stand beside me. Do you remember the day the pot went in? He smiled half his mouth. I remember Mother's hair, he said. It's shown. I remember the way Father made you hold the pot with both hands. He did it so you would learn to hold the family that way, too. And you ran circles around us, I said. You were the small wind that makes a flame happy. He laughed, sudden and bright, then looked down as if he had spoken out of turn in a quiet place. But the room did not mind. The room had known our laugh for years. It made room for one more. The baby fussed, sleepy, and fed. Mara lifted her gently and paced. The white cloth she used to rock the child was as soft as a cloud. Bello gathered the bowls and washed them by the door, the water spilling into the thirsty ground. The evening lay its hand on the roof and hushed the tin. Kofi and I took mats into the next room. We placed them on the floor where our childhood had learned to sleep. I did not lie near my mother's bed. I could not. That place is a small shrine in my heart, and tonight my heart was tired. I lay by the door where my father once stretched after long days, where he could rise if anyone knocked. Do you think we will find the pot? Kofi asked into the dim. Yes, I said. I think the ground does not forget. Do you? He breathed out. I hope so, he said. Hope is a careful thing. It does not shout. It sits in a corner and watches. Tonight it is sitting at the foot of my mat. We listened. The house spoke in its small ways, a board settling, a gecko telling its private jokes from the wall, the hinge singing a note when a breeze moved the door a finger width. A distant drum sounded from the far edge of town, where a wedding would be next week. The rhythm was slow, respectful, as if the drum knew it was practice, not the dance itself. I closed my eyes. The ceiling's old patterns were behind them anyway. My palms remembered the nail mark on the bench. My legs remembered the riverbank's slip and grip. My mind held the image of the clay pot with the comb marks my mother pressed into its side. I saw her thumbprint, light and sure. I slept, then woke in the deep night and listened again. The stars breathed on us, their light a patient blessing. I thought of the words our parents might have written on that paper inside the pot. I had seen my father's careful script so many times in the account book he kept under the bed. He wrote like a man planting. Each letter sat in its row. What did he plant the day of the house? The thought comforted me. It made a blanket across my worry. I slept again. Dreams came that were not confusing. I walked as a child through rooms where the bowls all knew my name. I climbed the mango tree in a way I can no longer do. I watched Kofi build a small house with blocks, and when it fell, he laughed and started again. In the dream, I did not speak. I just watched with a chest that felt large and quiet. Dawn came. It arrived at first as a rumor at the window, then as a light that made the room soft and the air sweet. I opened my eyes to the sound of a rooster asking a proud question. Someone in the lane swept. The broom on concrete made a brushy hush. I rose. My hands felt strong, not because I had slept long, but because they had decided to be strong. In the yard, the mango held drops of dew like little lanterns. Bello had boiled water. He called to us, "Come, wash. We will go together." Mara wrapped the baby and tied her firmly. The child's cheek sat plump against her mother's back, a round promise. We ate small pieces of bread with groundnut paste, and the paste stuck to the roof of my mouth the way a memory sticks. A neighbor came with a basket. "For steadiness," she said, handing me bananas. Another neighbor brought the shovel, blade thin from honest years. "It sings when it meets a stone," he said proudly, as if the shovel were his cousin who could carry a tune. We walked to the front room. The figure of the town gathered outside the gate like a polite thought waiting to knock. Elder Mosey arrived last, not from pride, but because he greets the day before he greets people. He entered the yard. He touched the pillar. He touched the wall. He stood still for one heartbeat longer than anyone else would have, and in that pause, he made room for what we were about to do. He looked at Kofi. "Are your hands ready?" he asked. Kofi lifted them. They were clean, but the skin at the base of the fingers had small half-moons where nails bite when work is close. "They are ready," he said. "Then we begin," Elder Mosey replied. He did not lift his staff for show. He did not call for drums. He looked at the ground the way a farmer looks at rainfall, grateful, focused, aware that what comes next will not listen to loudness, but only to right action. I handed Kofi the shovel. It felt like giving him both a punishment and a path. I do not know if my face showed that mix. He took it. He looked at me. 1,000 days lived inside that look. Then he set the blade to the earth near the pillar, not at the center where he might harm what lay below, but a palm's width out, the way our father taught us to open around the seed, not on it. He pressed his foot onto the shovel and leaned. The earth gave with a sigh that sounded like the first word of a prayer. He lifted the dirt, set it aside, leaned again, steady and measured. He did not work like a man who wants to show the crowd his speed. He worked like a person listening with his whole body for a word that might rise from the ground. The neighbors breathed with him. A child asked his mother a question in a whisper. The mother kissed his hair to answer. The baby on Mara's back slept. Bello held a length of string in his hands. He did not need it yet. He held it as a promise. I stood near the pillar. The filled hole of my heart and the open hole in the ground felt like brothers too. They did not need to be compared. They both needed careful hands. Tell me, Elder Mosi said quietly, stepping close to me while Kofi lifted another neat slice of earth. How did your mother say the blessing that day? She spoke softly, I said. She said, May this house hold mercy like a bowl holds water. May our sons be brothers when they agree and when they do not. May this door open to peace? She smiled when she said it. It was not a heavy smile. It was a smile like shade. It is a good blessing, he said. He closed his eyes for a breath, then opened them. My father taught me another line. A path is made by walking together. He told me to say it when ankles got hot with anger. I nodded. We will walk, I said, even if the morning asks more of us than we planned. Kofi paused and wiped his forehead with the inside of his wrist. Dirt had made a necklace of little crescents above his shoes. He crouched and began to use his hands, his fingers feeling for edges that were not stones. He blew away dust as if blowing crumbs from a table. His breath fell to the same rhythm as the town's heart. I felt mine match it, and it steadied me. He stopped, palm flat against the earth. The yard leaned forward. He did not speak. He ran his fingers along a curve. He looked up into the air, as if asking it to be quiet too. Then he brushed more soil, and a small ring of clay showed itself. The edge of something round, brown, and familiar, but in that moment, we did not name it yet. Slow, Elder Mosi said. Though Kofi had already chosen slow, Kofi loosened the soil with the grace of someone who knows how to untie a knot without anger. He lifted the clay shape into the light. It came whole. It wore our mother's comb marks on its side like a simple necklace. Dirt clung to it in little freckles. The lid was still sealed. He set it on a strip of cloth. His eyes went wet, but he did not wipe them. Mara made a sound that was almost a prayer and almost a sigh. Bello's mouth closed, a gentle line of awe. A neighbor's hand holding a string of beads stilled. The baby on Mara's back stirred and let out one small breath of contentment, as if from inside sleep, she had felt the room change. We did not open the pot yet. That belonged to the next breath, the next careful moment. Elder Mosi placed his palm on the lid. We will let the morning complete its own sentence, he said kindly. We will open this with our quiet in the next chapter of this day. He looked at me and Kofi and Bello, then at the gathered faces. Truth has risen to greet us, he said, smiling small. Now we will meet it without hurry. He lifted his staff just enough for the light to touch the carved bird on it. Neighbors, he said, we will rest our eyes and drink water. Then we will return our attention to the words inside this clay. We will let them guide our feet. We stepped back, all of us, as if the room had become sacred ground. Perhaps it had. Perhaps it always was. I went to the basin. I poured water into Kofi's cupped hands. He drank, then held his palms, and I poured again. He filled his mouth and let the water sit there before swallowing, as if asking it to carry a message to his bones. He handed me the gourd. I drank too. The water tasted like the well in the square, like coins and cool and the sound of women talking while they wait. I looked at my brother. He had dirt under his nails and on his wrists. He did not look small, though he had made a smallness with his mistake. He looked exact. That was the word that came to me. He looked like a man standing exactly where he needed to be, doing exactly what was required. The mango tree lifted a leaf and made one drop fall onto the packed ground between us. The drop darkened the earth in a round shape for a heartbeat, then the light took it back. The air felt like a door that had opened but not yet admitted us. We were ready to step through. We were not rushing. We would read what the pot had to say. We would accept what it asked of us, and we would walk the rest together. Morning rested on our shoulders like a clear shawl. The air in the front room was cool and smelled faintly of damp earth and basil. Dust rested on the windowsill in a soft line the broom would later gather. We stood in a circle that did not quite close, leaving the clay pot its own small space, like a seat for an elder guest. The pot waited on a strip of cloth. Its comb marks showed in the light. The lid was sealed with old care. The brass coin inside, if it was there, was quiet. I could hear the baby's slow breathing on Mara's back. I could hear the small scratch of the shovel blade as someone leaned it against the wall. Even the mango leaves seemed to hold still, as if a breeze had asked permission and decided to wait. Elder Mosey stepped closer. He placed his hand on the pot with the same steadiness he used to bless a child. "We open this with respect," he said. His eyes traveled from Kofi to me to Bello and Mara, and then to the neighbors at the door. He lifted the lid gently with a flat knife, working around until the seal gave with a soft sigh. The sigh a calabash makes when you first pour water from it after a dry season. Inside lay Truth dressed in simple clothes, the palm leaf packet tied with string, the brass coin, dull but warm, the folded note brown with time. Mosey lifted the note and passed it to me with both hands. "Read," he said. "Let the house hear your voice." My fingers shook a little. I slipped a corner of the paper free. My father's script greeted me like an old song. He wrote with careful letters that knew their place. I read aloud, slow, each word set down as if it needed its own small bed. "This house belongs to our family, to our sons, Kofi and Io, together. No one may sell without the other. If you must take a big step, take it side by side. We bless this pillar with our coin and our hope. May the roots hold you, father and mother." When I finished, I did not look up at once. I watched the letters quiet themselves on the page, as if they had their own heartbeat. Then I lifted my eyes. The room breathed. A small murmur passed like wind through millet. No one shouted. No one clapped. That felt right. It was a truth we already knew in our bones, spoken aloud so our hands could hear it too. Kofi's shoulders dropped as if a weight had at last been set down. Tears stood, but he did not let them fall onto the floor where dirt might hide them. He wiped them with the back of his hand, like a man who does not pretend he is made of stone. He met my eyes. He did not ask for pity. He waited for the road. Bello looked at the coin and then at his child, as if measuring a circle that included them both, and something larger. Care, perhaps. Mara touched the cloth under the pot, smoothing a wrinkle no one else saw. The baby stirred and sighed, warm and careless, not yet knowing the size of the day. Elder Mosey took the paper back. He did not hold it high. He did not make it a banner. He set it on his lap and folded his hands. He spoke like water over stones, clear, measured, sure. "We have heard the root speak," he said. "We will honor it. The sale is not valid. A house like this is a story built with many hands. One hand cannot carry it away." He turned to Bello and Mara. "You bought with trust and with your savings. Trust should not be punished. This town will not ask your baby to sleep under the sky. We will make a straight way between truth and mercy." He turned to Kofi. "You sold without your brother. You will make it right with work and with time. Your debt is not only coins. It is also the work of your arms." Kofi nodded. "I accept," he said. His voice did not shake. It had found its ground. Elder Mosey lifted his staff by its middle and held it against his chest. He did not pound it. He spoke as if telling a recipe that nourishes the whole road. Here is our judgment. He looked to the door where the neighbors stood, so all could see his face. The house returns to Ao and Kofi together. Bello and Mara are honored guests here for 3 moons while a new home rises. The council will assign a plot by the school wall, where the morning sun is kind and the well is near. Kofi will dig the foundation for Bello's new house with his own hands and with the help of any neighbor who wishes to join honest work. He will lay the first stones straight. He will carry water from the well and mix mortar. He will return the purchase sum in steady payments each month from the work of an honest trade. Ayo will share the labor of repairing this roof and will stand by his brother while the work is done. Bello will continue his kindness and Mara will bring her songs. No fists, no hard words. We will walk this path together. He paused and let the words settle, like millet settling after the bag has been set down. Bello nodded first. We accept, he said. He did not pretend he had lost nothing. You could see the small ache in his eyes, but you could also see relief rise, like light on water. We will build, and we will be neighbors. Mara's mouth trembled. She breathed in, then smiled and reached to touch Bello's hand. The baby slept on, trusting the room. Kofi looked down at the hole he had opened for the pot, then at the shovel. I accept, he said again. I will dig. I will lay each stone as if it is my promise. I placed my hand on his shoulder. I am with you, I said. The words lived in my chest before they left my mouth. We will make it right. A soft exhale moved through the doorway. It was not applause. It was something quieter, agreement. The neighbors did not linger over gossip. They offered help, their words like jars of oil set on a shelf one by one. I will bring my straight-line string, Oho said, tapping his cane. I will lend a trowel, Amma said. I will cook yam on the first day, another neighbor called. Mosey stood and tied a strip of white cloth to the gate. It hung there like a simple flag of peace. This house is under council protection, he said. Whoever passes should bless it with their eyes. He looked at us. Now let us return what came from the ground. The pot has done its work. It will sleep again. We folded the note and set it gently into the pot with the coin and the palm leaf. Kofi lowered it into the same earth that had kept it safe. We pressed the soil smooth, as our mother taught us to smooth a child's hair before sending him into the day. The spot held its quiet. Eat, Mosey said to us all. Then we will go to the plot. A straight line is easier to make before the afternoon heat. We ate quickly and well. Plantain with a touch of pepper, cassava that broke clean under the thumb, water that tasted like a promise. I washed my hands and wiped them dry on a clean cloth. Kofi looked at his palms and flexed his fingers, like a musician before a song. Bello lifted the baby for a kiss, then tucked her back against Mara's back. We set out. The path to the school wall ran past the grinding mill and a stand of eucalyptus that clicked its leaves together like small wooden spoons. Children were already at the schoolyard, their voices a bright line. The wall itself wore chalk smudges where yesterday's lesson had leaned after class. You could smell chalk and dust and the faint sweetness of guava from a nearby tree not yet ready to share fruit. Mosey stood at the center of the plot the council had kept for days like this. Unused. Clean. Waiting for a right reason. Here, he said. The ground is steady. Morning light is generous. The breeze knows how to be kind. He handed me a line and 2 pegs. Bello took the other end, and we stretched the line tight. The string sang a thin note between our hands. Kofi watched, then placed a peg where Mosey tapped his staff. Corners, Mosey said, and we made them square with care, checking, then checking again. The shadow of a passing cloud gave us a soft pause. Start here, Mosey told Kofi, indicating the first trench line. A trench as wide as your arm from elbow to wrist. Deep enough to be sure, Kofi set the shovel. It entered the soil with a sound like a soft bell. The earth lifted in slices. He worked with a rhythm that anyone could trust. Bello joined, not to take the shovel, but to help clear loose soil with a hoe and pull it to the side. I gathered stones in a pile, choosing each by how it seemed to fit the shape of the work. A square one for a corner, a long one for the steady line, a small one to snug against a gap. Mara stood with a calabash of water and a song on her mouth, low and even. She hummed more than she sang, and the hum was like a hand on a back, present, gentle, encouraging. Neighbors came and went. Amma brought boiled groundnuts and laughed from her belly. Ojo advised with his cane, stopping anyone whose shovel wandered. "Keep it straight," he said. "A straight trench listens better." 2 schoolchildren ran to fetch extra pegs. They returned with pride, their posture tall as new maize. The sun climbed. Heat gathered on the crown of my head, then settled like a shawl. Sweat made small rivers down Kofi's forearms. He did not stop to wipe it often. He let it fall. His breathing became a steady engine. Every few minutes we exchanged a glance. Nothing dramatic, just a small check. "Are you there?" "I am here." At the far end of the trench, the shovel struck an old buried root. Kofi stopped and knelt. He used his hands to ease it out, strand by strand, patient. "Roots hold," he said quietly, to no one and to everyone. He set the root aside with respect, as if it were a memory that did not need to be cut. Through all of it, the schoolyard sang. Children recited numbers. A teacher's voice rose and fell. Laughter came like a bird and then flew. The sound made the work lighter. It reminded me that houses sit inside lives, and lives continue. At midday, Mosey called a pause. We sat in the small shade of the wall. Our shadows pressed close to us. The trench lay open, honest, like a clear sentence that tells you what it means on the first reading. We drank water. It ran down our throats with a relief that could have been named. Bello wiped his hands and looked at Kofi. "Your cut is clean," he said. "You hold the shovel with respect." Kofi nodded once. "It is teaching me," he said. "I am listening." A neighbor, Aqua, spoke gently from the edge of our shade. "I worried at first," she admitted, fingers smoothing the edge of her headscarf. "I thought, how will this end without shouting? But this feels like watching a seed eat the dark to find the light." We smiled. The image felt right. Work like this is a kind of growing. After the pause, we stood again. The sound of the shovel returned to its music. Stones collected in their pile began to smell of sun. A breeze found us, lifting the edge of Mara's scarf, making the string line quiver like a quiet wire. Kofi's back had become a map of sweat lines. Bello's palms reddened at the base. My shoulders felt the good ache of trust. As the trench lengthened, a small knot of men arrived at the edge of the plot, led by Kwame, who knew how to turn small feelings into big ones if no one watched him closely. His face held the question some people bring to any fair thing: where is my part? He called to Mosi, not loudly, but with that tone that tries to stir. "Elder," he said, "why must Kofi do all this? He alone? That seems heavy. Why do we honor the buyer so much? He is not from our family. Is this not too much work for one man's mistake? Could we not make a quicker end?" The shovel paused. The wall held its breath. Kofi lifted his head and did not speak. He did not need to. Mosey moved toward the men with the same calm he had shown the pot. He leaned on his staff. He did not make Kwame small with his eyes. "This is not punishment for punishment's sake," he said. "This is a straight way through a crooked day." The buyer trusted a neighbor. We honor that trust by making him whole. The seller walked alone into a big choice. We teach his legs to walk with company. Everyone stands. Everyone keeps their dignity. Quick ends do not always make clean beginnings. Kwame set his mouth for one more question. Mosey gently added, "We do not throw a fishing net over a village to catch one fish. We catch the fish and keep the village whole." The men stood a moment, then nodded. The argument knocked from their hands without anyone being hit. They dragged over 2 heavy stones to add to our pile, and, after a while, one of them found himself holding the end of the line while another fetched water and did not notice that he had become part of the work. When the trench was as long as a full house's side, we stopped and admired it, not with boasting, but with a small shared nod. The earth we had lifted lay piled, ready to fill the spaces when the stones were set. The ground smelled alive. A single butterfly landed on the line and rode it as it swayed, as if this was its own sort of branch. In the late afternoon, Mosey spoke to me quietly. Bring the roof nails for your own house tomorrow, he said. While the foundation here rests, you and Kofi can set your roof right before the next rain. Let no small leak become a river. I will, I said. I have a handful from the coast. They do not bend easily. Good, he replied. Houses like firm nails. So do promises. We walked back when the light turned gentle. Dust rose behind our feet and settled again without argument. The town liked that kind of day. You could feel it in the way people watered their small gardens and in the way dogs chose a shady place and did not bark. We entered our yard. The white cloth on the gate moved a little, greeting us like a quiet friend. Inside, the front room felt different, though nothing had shifted. Working side by side had rearranged the air. We washed our hands. The dirt ran in thin ropes into the basin. It left our skin and did not argue about it. I brought out the small tin of nails from my sea bag. I set it on the bench. Kofi opened it and lifted a nail. He pressed it with his thumb. Strong, he said, and his voice, perhaps for the first time that day, held a note of simple pride not shaded by regret. We ate by lamplight. Mara's stew had rested and grown deep. The baby, awake now, thumped a wooden spoon and laughed at its own power. Bello told us about his reasons for wanting a house near the school. I want our child to learn, he said. I want her to walk a short path and come home to a door that knows her hand. Kofi listened. He did not speak to fill any space. When he did talk, he said, Tomorrow, we will finish the trench's other side. The corners will meet true, and I will wake early to help Ayo set the first nails on our roof before the sun lifts its head too high. We nodded. A breeze came through the open window and brought the smell of the neighbors cooking. Somewhere down the lane, a drum practiced a pattern that would be the heartbeat of a wedding soon. The sound made the lamp flame lean and then stand straight again. After the dishes, I stepped to the pillar and touched the place where the pot slept. The earth there was smooth. It had taken back its own. I felt not only relief, but a strange gratitude. Gratitude that the ground keeps our stories when we cannot, and that neighbors will gather when a hand lifts the lid at last. Do you think the baby will remember any of this? I asked, looking at the small feet that had slipped free of the cloth on Mara's back. She will not remember with words, Mara said, smiling. She will remember with how the air feels in a fair house. We made beds for the night. Bello and Mara took the front room again, honored guests. Kofi and I lay our mats where the roof's shadow knew our faces. Before sleep, we spoke quietly. Kofi, I said, what did your hands feel when you pulled the pot from the ground? Warm, he replied, surprising me. Warmer than the earth? As if all those years had kept a little heat inside it. It felt like being held and scolded at once. He laughed softly at his own words, then grew thoughtful. When Elder spoke of digging the foundation, I was afraid. It sounded like a long road. But when the shovel sang, I felt a rightness I have not felt since Mother's last afternoon. It is a long road. It is also the exact road. We fell quiet. The house hummed its tiny notes. The guava tree that belonged to no one, behind the school wall, let a fruit drop somewhere in the dark. The sound was soft and complete. Sleep came. The next day, the second length of trench welcomed our tools. The rhythm returned like an old friend. Step, press, lift, set stone here and then here, carry water, sip water, wipe a brow, smile at the way the line trembles in a playful wind. The sun wore its brightness kinder than the day before. Children came again, offering questions as gifts. How many stones make a wall? Does a foundation get lonely before the walls arrive? We answered for their sakes and for our own. As many as it needs. No, it keeps company with the ground. At noon, a patch of cloud crossed, and in that shade we began to set the first stones. Mosey's hands joined ours for a moment, showing how to seat a stone so it would not wobble, how to pack earth and small rock around it so it would not complain in the night. Listen with your fingers, he said. A good stone tells you when it is home. We listened. We pressed. We stepped back. We admired the honest line. Bello laughed once, a sound that carried joy without apology. Mara shaded her eyes and squinted down the row. It looks like a sentence I want to finish, she said. And I liked her for that. In the late afternoon, a small thing happened that felt big. Kwame, who had questioned the work yesterday, walked over without words, picked up a basket of small stones, and tipped them where Kofi pointed. He did it again. He did not offer a speech to explain himself. He did a third basket. Then he clapped Kofi's shoulder and went on his way. That is how neighbors learn. We finished placing the stones we had promised ourselves we would place. The line reached from peg to peg, steady as a promise kept. Our bodies were tired, but our tiredness felt clean. We covered the trench lightly for the night, the way you cover a pot of stew so it will deepen its flavor. Back home, before dusk settled fully, Kofi and I climbed to the roof with the nails and 2 hammers. The boards showed their age, their edges lifting like feathers in a light wind. We pressed them down and nailed them where the rain had wanted to find a path. Each nail made a clean sound, tack, 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 like a determined bird pecking toward a seed. Bello stood below and handed up the next handful. Mara laughed when we showered her with old dust by accident and then apologized too many times. She swatted the air playfully. The baby watched from her cloth nest, eyes wide as if watching a puppet show with no need for strings. When the last nail went in, the roof seemed to sigh, a deep, agreeable sigh that ended in a contented hush. We climbed down and stood in the yard with our hands on our hips, like our father used to stand when he had done good work and did not want to boast about it. Night came with soft feet. We ate. We told a short story. Mosey told it. A story about a man who tried to plant yams with a drumstick and learned that some tools are only right for music. And we laughed longer than the story required because laughter had been scarce for a while, and now it wanted its own measure. Before sleep, I walked to the gate and touched the white cloth. It fluttered against my fingers. Somewhere behind me, Kofi said my name. I turned. He stood by the pillar, hands loose at his sides. Ayo, he said. Tomorrow we will pour the first mortar. Elder said to bring smooth river sand, not the rough kind from the edge of the road. I will bring it, I said. I will go at first light with a basket and be back before the sun remembers itself. He nodded. Good, he said. He looked as if he wanted to say more, then chose silence instead. Not the hard kind. A soft silence that means, I am thinking with my whole self. I slept. And in the morning I walked to the river, the same bend where Kofi had thrown stones on the day of truth. The water looked like it had forgiven us for putting our pain near it. I filled my basket with sand, the grain slipping soft over my wrists, cool as early milk. I thought of the house that would be, the walls speaking, the roof learning to hold rain, the door letting a child run through after school. When I reached the plot, everyone was already there. Kofi lifted his hand not to wave but to say yes. We moved together. Mortar came to life under our hands. We set a small stone, then a long one, then a small one again, like spelling a word that needed both short letters and tall letters to be true. Each placement clicked into my chest. As we worked, Elder Mosey stood at the edge and watched the line we drew with our labor. He did not hover. He attended. That is what elders do when they are wise. They attend without stealing the work from younger hands. Once he touched my shoulder and said almost nothing. Good, he said. It was enough. The sun lowered its voice. The trench was no longer a trench. It was a foundation beginning to know itself. We rinsed our hands. The water turned the color of the day and ran into the thirsty ground. The string line came down. We coiled it and placed it in Oho's cloth bag with a shared care that treated string like gold, because today it had been. As we walked home, I heard the bell at the school's gate. Children laughed. Someone somewhere pounded fufu, the rhythm firm and comforting. In our yard, the mango tree waved a leaf. I waved back, not because I believe trees see us, but because I like the shape of that politeness in the world. Inside, the front room felt even more ours. The pillar held the earth and the note and the coin and the blessing. The white cloth at the gate whispered. My arms ached, but in the ache I felt a beam set straight. Kofi sat on the bench and rubbed his palms. The skin there had thickened in a day, as if it had been waiting to do that. He looked at me. I did not know work could be a kind of healing, he said. It is slow, I said. Slow like a good song, he nodded. I will keep singing. We ate, we cleaned, we rested. Distant thunder muttered in the east, then thought better of it and held its tongue. The lamp's smoke wrote small curls on the air. When sleep came, it came like a neighbor at the door, present, familiar, not asking for permission because it did not need to. Tomorrow would bring more stones, more sand, more laughter that made afternoon lighter, more small kindnesses, more careful lines. The judgment had been spoken, and we were speaking back with our hands. The foundation was rising from the soil and from us, one honest lift at a time. Work began to measure our days, the way a clock measures the patient steps of time. Each morning, the plot by the school wall called us. We answered. The string line stretched true. The shovel found its rhythm. Stones warmed in the sun and waited for our hands. Children passed with their slates and their bright voices. The bell at the school gate chimed at the start of lessons, and then again at their end, a simple promise that days can be counted and kept. We dug the last lengths of trench. We set the last base stones. We mixed mortar until our shoulders hummed. When the afternoon grew sharp, neighbors came with small helps that were not small at all, ground nuts and paper cones, a flask of tea, cool water from the well. When we rested in a modest shade, someone's hat, a scrap of cloud, the brief blessing of the school wall's shoulder. We laughed more than the day before, not because we forgot our trouble, but because the trouble had learned to sit quietly and let the work speak. After work, the house that was once sold and now was home again received us with its familiar creaks. We ate at the table that has always known our elbows. Mara sang as she washed a spoon. Bello told us a small story from the market. Kofi and I named the places on our roof that still needed attention and planned the next nails. The white cloth on the gate moved like a gentle breath. At night, the baby dreamed. Sometimes she laughed out loud in her sleep, and we all felt lighter. On the fourth morning after the pot spoke, the sky held back its blue and sent a brief, silver rain. We stood under the eaves and watched the drops make dark freckles on the yard. The mango leaves shed water in threads, and each thread ended in a small splash that the earth welcomed. When the rain paused, we walked to the plot. The trench had held firm. The first stones did not sullenly shift or sink. Kofi ran his palm over the line. Good, he said to no one, and to the day itself. He worked harder than I had ever seen him work, not from punishment, but from a new kind of belonging to his own strength. He accepted coins for small jobs between our building hours, too, helping carry sacks at the mill, patching a fence, pulling weeds for an old widow who could not bend like she once did. Each evening he set aside a little bundle of money wrapped in cloth, the first of many repayments to be placed into Bello's hands. He did it without ceremony. He did it with quiet pride. When the foundation reached its measure and the corners spoke to each other with straight voices, we breathed out together. Elder Mosey stood with us. He did not clap, but his eyes shone like the first steady lamp on a long road. He spoke softly. A foundation is a promise we bury and then keep, he said. Now we keep it with walls. Walls rose. We lifted each block, set it, pressed it, and watched the line grow clean. The mortar smoothed under the trowel like a river that had decided to be kind. People came and learned how to hold a block so it would not tilt, how to guide it with fingers so it would nestle and not quarrel. The wall lifted past our knees, past our waists, to our chests, and then to our shoulders. When the windows found their places, the wind came through and learned new paths. At our own house, the roof accepted its nails. We mended the back step where the concrete had chipped away under years of heels. We patched a crack on the kitchen wall. I fixed the hinge that sang too loudly whenever the door moved. Kofi rewove the mat where a child had once tested a knife on its edge. It felt good to make small things strong again. It felt like asking the house to trust us, and then keeping the promise. As the first moon waxed and waned, we balanced our days between building and belonging. Bello and Mara remained in our front room as honored guests, as the council had asked, and they made the room more tender with their care. Mara boiled basil leaves and showed me how the steam can make a cough smaller. Bello cleaned the shelf that had carried dust since our mother's last day. The baby grew, as if the town itself fed her with its humor and its patience. She learned to clap. She clapped for a spoon. She clapped for a bird. She clapped for the sight of Kofi's shovel, and then laughed as if she had lifted a mountain. Near the end of the second moon, Mosey called us to the fig tree again, not to test, but to bless the road we had walked. The shade folded around us. The talking drum lay quiet at his side. He looked at me, and at Kofi, and at Bello, and at Mara. He looked at the neighbors who had kept coming, some with hands rough from their own long days, some with hands soft but strong. He spoke with the careful ease we already trusted. "What began with a paper now stands with a wall," he said. "We measured truth by the ground, and the ground did not lie. We answered with work. We answered with patience. We did not answer with fists. Now we will set the last stretch before the roof, and we will do it with the same care." He looked at Kofi. "Your first payment?" he asked. Kofi stepped forward and placed a wrapped cloth in Bello's open palm. "For the first month," he said. "From honest work." His voice did not pretend to be brave. It was simply sure. Bello nodded. "Received," he said. He placed his other hand over Kofi's in a gesture that felt like a bridge. Mara's eyes were wet, and she let them be wet. The baby, who knew nothing of coins, reached for Kofi's thumb and squeezed it. He looked startled and then smiled, as if a small bird had landed on his shoulder. Mosey's gaze moved to me. "And your roof?" he asked, a hint of play in his voice. "It holds," I said. "We will finish the back corner tomorrow." "Good," he replied. "Houses like to feel your attention. So do brothers." He let the quiet sit a heartbeat, then added, "There is a saying my mother gave me when I forgot my temper. When two brothers fight, a stranger inherits the farm. You walk together this time." "Keep walking." Kofi cleared his throat. He turned to me in front of everyone, not to show off, but to make the truth stand in the same light where we stood. "Io," he said, "forgive me again and again when needed. I will not keep important things in the dark. I will not let shame speak for me anymore. I forgive you," I said, and the words felt like water. "And forgive me for staying away too long. We will carry the house together now, like a pot filled to the brim with both hands." When the third moon began, the roof on Bello and Mara's house went up. Boards met cautiously, then agreed. Sheets of tin lay in the sun like patient fish, ready to be lifted. We climbed the ladder, 4 rungs at a time, with nails between our fingers and a bag at our side. Each nail struck home with a clean, bright sound. The roof answered by settling and stretching, and then by holding. We hung the door. It swung true. Bello bought a small bell for the lintel, a bell whose ring was not proud, only friendly. Mara planted basil in a pot by the step and tucked a small neem seedling into the ground with her thumb. The baby stood against the wall, holding herself up with her hands, then let go for one step before falling on her soft bottom. We cheered as if she had crossed a river on her own feet. The day of moving came as days do, because we had walked each day between here and there. The town gathered. Cloth-covered dishes lined the bench, stew that smelled of ginger and tomatoes, pounded yam fluffy as clouds, greens that tasted like rain washed and cooked with patience. A few women called out the high, clear joy that only women can call, and the sound stitched itself into the afternoon. Men smiled without hurrying. Children spun and did not collide, a miracle that happens when joy itself becomes a road. We carried chairs and baskets and the small painted pot from our front room to the new room. It looked at home at once, as if it had been waiting to sit there and hold a handful of basil leaves and a spoon. Bello rang the little bell at the lintel and then tapped the door twice with his knuckles for luck. Mara touched the doorpost and then her forehead. The baby reached for the bell and laughed when it answered her. Before we ate, we stood in the doorway. Mosey raised his palms. He did not make a speech to impress. He blessed to steady. "May this house hold laughter that does not wound," he said. "May sleep here be safe. May quarrels end before the last bowl is washed. May the door remember every hand that opens it." He smiled at the baby, who clapped for his voice. He added, "A house is built by hands. A home is built by hearts. Let both be strong." We ate until we were full. We shared stories that made the path from sorrow to peace look clear in hindsight, the way a trail looks obvious once you have already walked it. Bello thanked the council, and then thanked the neighbors, and then thanked the air. Mara stood in the new doorway and took a deep breath, as if tasting the room. "It tastes like clean," she said, and everyone laughed because each of us knew what she meant. As the sun softened, Mosey spoke a final small word. "The white cloth at your former gate will come down when Bello and Mara sleep here tonight," he said to me and to Kofi. "But remember, protection remains where people choose fairness. It does not depend on cloth." He placed his hand on Kofi's shoulder. "Your work today and in the days to come honors your parents' pot," he said. "It also honors the child you once were, who ran and laughed when a wall rose. Keep that child's good part. Let go of the part that listens to fear." We walked back down the lane together, carrying the last basket. Our house stood as it always had, but with a different quiet, a quiet that follows true words and well-set stones. Kofi paused by the pillar and touched the earth above the clay pot. "Thank you," he whispered. Whether to the house or to the ground or to our parents' hands, I cannot say. Perhaps all three heard. At the gate, the white cloth trembled. I untied it. I folded it and placed it on the bench. The gate groaned once as if clearing its throat, but even that sound seemed less sharp now. "Tomorrow we fix that hinge," I said. "It has sung long enough. We will fix it," Kofi answered. He looked toward the mango tree. "After," he added, "let us plant a guava on the other side of the yard. Something small that grows with patience." We brought the sapling the next morning. The soil yielded and took it in. We pressed the earth around it with our palms and poured water until the ground drank and was content. The guava's small leaves shivered as if pleased to begin. The mango stood by like an older cousin keeping watch. In the weeks that followed, we kept our rhythm. Kofi made the next payment and then the next. He did not hurry what needed time. He did not delay what needed doing. Sometimes, when I woke before dawn, I heard him sweeping the front step, the broom's soft sound a kind of prayer. We repaired the last of our roof and painted the window frames with a color that looked like calm morning. When rain finally came full and thick, it spoke on our roof with a voice like a steady drum. No water crept through. We listened with relief so easy it felt like laughter we had saved for this exact sound. I visited Bello and Mara often. Their house felt like it had been there for years, though the mortar was still new. The little bell answered everyone who entered. The neem grew. Basil perfumed the doorway. The baby, now more of a toddler, followed a lizard with careful delight, patting the ground with her small hand. Mara set a bowl in my hands whenever I came, saying nothing about thanks because we had all thanked each other enough. One evening, she leaned against the doorpost and watched her husband shell ground nuts and said almost to herself, "A straight wall makes a person stand straighter." The town, too, changed a little. Kwame, who had questioned the judgment, brought his nephew to learn how to set a stone, and the boy did, his tongue out in concentration. Amma gave me a bundle of yams with a look that said, "No argument." Oho's cane tapped out its own approval in the mornings. A small thing, people began to use the phrase "dig the foundation" when they meant making amends. "He will dig the foundation," someone would say, and we would understand work and time and truth, not punishment alone. One late afternoon, when the sun stood like a kind elder at the edge of the sky, Mosey stopped by our yard. He sat on the bench. He rested his staff upright between his knees. We brought him water, then tea with a leaf of mint. He sipped and made that small sound of appreciation that people make when water hits the exact right place. "How does the house feel?" he asked, looking not at the walls but at our faces. "It breathes easy," I said. "It has forgiven the paper." He smiled, eyes soft. "Houses forgive when people do," he said. Kofi came from the back with the hinge in his hand. "It no longer sings," he announced, pleased. He set it down and joined us. We three sat without the need for many words. The neighbor's hen guided her chick past our feet. the small feet ticking against the ground. A swallow dipped in the air above the guava sapling. The sapling's leaves shook their tiny green hands. Mosey rose to leave and paused at the pillar, laying his palm on the place where the pot slept. He closed his eyes for the space of one breath. "May your roots keep drinking," he said. "May your leaves stay glad." He looked at us with mischief and wisdom mixed, as always. "And remember this, justice is not a stone that falls. It is a path people mark with their feet." He went down the lane, his staff finding its steady music. We watched him until he turned the corner and the fig tree hid him for the night. I stood there with Kofi. We did not say much. The day had done enough speaking. We listened to the hush that follows a right choice. The mango gave a small sway. The guava held still. Far away, the little bell at Bello's door chattered once in the wind, the way a happy man clears his throat before a song. I thought of that first morning, the shovel biting the earth. I thought of the clay pot rising from the ground and the note that spoke our parents' voice back into the room. I thought of Bello's open hands, and Mara's steady gaze, and the baby's grip on Kofi's thumb. I thought of my brother's hands, raw and honest, finding their way to work that both paid a debt and built a future. What holds a house if not our care? What brings brothers back if not the simple gifts of truth and time and community? The judge did not lift a stick. He lifted a shovel in his judgment. Kofi dug the foundation that day, yes, but he also dug a path back to me. And in that work, under a sky that forgets no one, we all stood restored.